Virginia state lawmakers are once again taking up the controversial issue of a proposed smoking ban. Insight's Mark Kaufman joins us in the studio with more on the hot debate.
Thanks and welcome. We are now joined by Anna Yates, a senior for VCU's Capitol News Service. Anna's recently been covering the smoking ban legislation down at the General Assembly. Thanks for joining us today, Anna.
Hi.
Now, recently there was a study that says 75% of Virginians actually support the smoking ban, but yet it continues each year in the General Assembly to fail. Is there a chance this year that it'll get passed?
Well, I think there's always a chance. The General Assembly, it always takes things, especially things that are kind of controversial, it always takes things a few years to really get momentum. There are a lot of legislation that comes back year after year and eventually does get passed. Sometimes it never does. But I think, so I think there's always a chance if people are still working on it.
Okay. Now, you covered a rally at the Capitol last week by supporters of the smoking ban. What exactly are their arguments and how do they, remain so determined in their fight?
Well, there are a lot of people that are saying because of the effects of secondhand smoke that it's really dangerous in public places where people can't really, get fresh air, especially to allow people to smoke. So in the light of health, health effects, that's really, they want to try to get the impact of secondhand smoke reduced on people who don't smoke. And what was the second part of the question?
It was, how do they remain so determined in their fight?
A lot of the people that I talked to at the rally had a lot of personal experience with people who had been sick because of smoking. So I think a lot of people, it's such a personal thing for them that even if it doesn't get passed, they still believe in the cause, and so they're still willing to work towards it.
Right. And that gets us to our next question. Many of these smoke-free supporters not only want to ban smoking in public places and restaurants, but they have an even greater goal to decrease smoking in general. What about the debate between public health concerns, as you mentioned before, versus personal individual rights?
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there that say it's their right to smoke, and they don't want to be legislated where they can and can't smoke. So I do think that there is probably a line, but there are other people that say, they shouldn't have to put up with other people smoking around them. So it is, a hard line to say, and you have a lot of conservatives that would think it's not the role of the government to legislate people's actions to that extent. And so it's definitely a hot issue with people.
Okay. And in closing, how much of an impact do you think tobacco companies like Philip Morris are having on the failing of this legislation?
It's hard to say. I haven't looked into, any specific contributions Philip Morris may have made to legislators, but Philip Morris is a big presence in Richmond and all of Virginia. It's a tobacco state, so I do think there has to be some impact on that when people are making the decisions, because they're a big employer in the state, for one thing, and so it definitely is a consideration that Virginia has that other states might not have when they consider a smoking ban.
Okay. Thanks again for joining us today, Anna Yates. She is a reporter for Capitol News Service. Back to Jeremy and Brittany.